All right, let's talk about German. If you've been learning for a while, you've probably stared at adjective endings and just felt your brain start to fizzle out, right? It seems like there are a million different rules for every situation. But what if I told you there's a really simple, logical system behind it all, especially when you've got a definite article in the mix? Well, today we're going to dive in and crack that code on what's called weak adjective declension. So, let's start with the classic head-scratcher. You see a sentence with der grüne Rock, which means the green skirt. Simple enough. But then, a little later, you see den grünen Rock. Hold on. It's the exact same skirt, the exact same color. So why on earth did the adjective ending just change from an E to an EN? This is exactly the kind of thing that trips us all up. But I promise you, the answer is surprisingly simple. To make sense of all this, we're going to use a little analogy. I want you to just forget about memorizing grammar tables for a minute. Instead, I want you to picture a band. A German grammar band, to be exact. And in this band, there are two key members who are going to make everything perfectly clear. We've got a lead singer, and we've got a backup singer. Okay, this slide right here, this is basically the entire system. Our lead singer is the definite article, der, die, das. The lead singer does all the heavy lifting. They're the ones wearing the big, flashy costume that signals all the important grammar info, the gender of the noun, its case, all of it. And because the lead singer is being so loud and clear, our adjective, the backup singer, gets to just relax. It just wears a simple, standard uniform that ends in either E or N. That's the whole secret. So let's see how this actually works with the band's first song, the nominative case. This is the case you use for the subject of the sentence. The star of the show, the person or thing doing the action. So how does our band perform here? Let's take a look. Just look at that pattern. It's incredibly consistent, right? For masculine, feminine, and neuter nouns, the adjective, our backup singer, simply takes on an E ending. That's it. The lead singer is doing all the work. The only little exception is the plural, way down at the bottom. That's the one time our backup singer has to switch into its other uniform, the ihn one. So for this whole case, you really only have to remember that one small detail.
And here's that rule in practice. Der grüne Rock, the article der is our lead, so grün just gets a simple E. It's the exact same story for die blaue Hose and das gestreifte Kleid. Then we get to the plural, die blauen Jeans, and just as the rulebook said, the adjective switches to that N ending. See? The band is in perfect harmony.
All right, time for the second song on our set list, the accusative case. This is the case for the direct object. That's the noun that is receiving the action. Our band is still playing, but our lead singer has one little costume change that you've got to watch out for. So, what's the big twist? Well, it only happens for masculine nouns. The lead singer, our article, changes from der to den. And just to stay in sync, the backup singer also changes its ending to en. But now look at everything else, feminine, neuter, and plural. They are exactly the same as they were in the nominative. The lead singer didn't change, so the backup singer didn't have to either.
And here we can see it live on stage. Ich kaufe den grünen Rock. The skirt is the direct object, and it's masculine, so we get den and en. But check out the feminine blouse, the neuter dress, and the plural shoes. Absolutely nothing changes from the nominative case. It's still die blaue, das rote, and die roten. The system is holding up perfectly.
And now for the encore, the dative case. This is the case for the indirect object. Now, you might be thinking, oh boy, here's where it gets really complicated. But actually, this is where our band reveals their simplest, most powerful trick. This is hands down the easiest rule of all. Just take a second and really look at this. The lead singer is working hard, right? The articles are changing for each gender and the plural. We've got dem, der, dem, den. So what does our backup singer do? Look at that final column. It does the exact same thing every single time. Masculine, feminine, neuter, plural, it just doesn't matter.
That's it. That is the entire rule for the dative case when you have a definite article. The adjective ending is always en. No exceptions, no special conditions. In the dative, the ending is en, period.
And here's the proof. Dem großen Tisch, der weißen Wand, dem neuen Regal, den kleinen Hockern. It doesn't matter if the noun is masculine, feminine, neuter, or plural. Once you're in the dative case, that adjective backup singer puts on its ein uniform and never takes it off. This is the beautiful, simple payoff for understanding the system.
So, we've seen our band perform in 3 different cases. Now let's put it all together on one final chart to see just how simple this whole system truly is when you look at it the right way.
This is it. This is the whole master plan. Just look at how much of this chart is simply N. The entire dative column? It's all N. The entire plural row? All N. That one masculine accusative change? Also N. The only thing left is that little block of E's in the top left corner. So what looked like a dozen complicated rules is really just 2 simple endings. And N does most of the heavy lifting.
So if you take just one thing away from all this, please let it be this idea right here. Don't try to memorize a chart of random endings. Instead, just remember the band. The lead singer, that's the article, tells everyone the gender in the case. And that frees up the backup singer, the adjective, to just wear its simple E or N uniform. That's the core logic behind everything. Now, of course, that leads us to a final, fascinating question. We've built this whole system around the idea that the definite article, our lead singer, is there doing all the work. But what happens when the band shows up and the lead singer's missing? What if you just have green skirt with no the? Well, that's a whole other performance, and we'll save that one for next time.